there's one thing that to me progressives just refuse to say in their messaging, and that is corruption. I mean, India Walton kind of vaguely, I saw it in tweets, kind of allude to that the mayor is corrupt, but in debates, no. In the if there were television ads or digital ads, progressives from Bernie to Nina, they have a lot of consultants telling them positive, run a positive campaign on the issues. And that's great. But the truth is, there is a through line to why there's such a lead problem in Buffalo. There's a through line to why streets, certain parts of, and broaden it from Buffalo to Cleveland to Pittsburgh to Milwaukee to Flint to Detroit, why it's a tale of two cities, why the downtown in all these areas are wonderful, great restaurants, great bars. Then you drive 15 minutes, it looks like Fallujah in some areas. No disrespect. Why is it that why are certain parts, why are there two cities or three cities within one city? Why are there such underinvestments and total just ignoring whole communities and whole problems? Well, because you have mayors that are technically legally corrupt, that they are selling out your interests to grease the pads of their donors, to grease the wallets of the real estate developers, to maintain power and patronage systems. And to me, Byron Brown, I mean, to the letter of the law, he's been investigated. So have his cronies in Buffalo, the current mayor. But there seems to be a real hesitance among whether it's India Walton, whether it's Pramila Jayapal and AOC and Bernie, to just call it what it is. And people could say, well, people don't want that. Well, the truth is negative campaigning works. It just does. Bernie, people don't remember, Bernie didn't necessarily call Biden corrupt. He kept calling him my friend. But what he did do, people don't remember, Bernie was closing the gap among older voters, which was unheard of. Bernie, that was his kryptonite, older voters, by just attacking Biden on television, on social media, on trying to privatize social media, privatize Social Security. And the ads were pretty negative. So I wanted to ask you, would she have won? Who knows? But do you think if she would have in debates said, hey, the reason we have such a lead problem is the current mayor, instead of investing in fixing it, has invested in beautifying downtown and enriching real estate developers. And that kind of messaging, the fact that the transportation system don't work, the sewer systems don't work, youth centers are closing down, it's because he is making a moral choice to enrich X, Y, and Z. Do you think that messaging, I mean, obviously the media would attack her for it, but the media is going to attack you regardless. Is that something that progressives should consider?
Yeah. And, I think that realistically, there was zero downside to her, for her to do that. I think that I don't necessarily agree with exactly the strategic choices made in a campaign like Nina Turner's, but she has to kind of thread the needle on going on offense while being portrayed as anti, Joe Biden, as, just someone that's not going to back the president. Byron Brown really was, at least in public, what was happening behind the scenes is a different question, but at least in public, he was isolated. He had no support from the local establishment, with the exception of common council members. Even the county party had realized that, look, this is more heat than we can handle, to openly back him. And even, ham-fisted attempts by the state party to kind of chip away at Walton backfired so spectacularly that people like Chuck Schumer were backing India Walton. So she realistically was not going to burn any bridges with the broader kind of Democratic Party or Democratic machine, and she wasn't going to alienate Democratic-based voters by just relentlessly attacking Byron Brown, who has over a decade of well documented corruption issues. Everyone around him has gone down with federal charges on corruption. He's managed to avoid it, but realistically, every single person in Buffalo knows that he's corrupt. Their willingness to tolerate that, people have different willingnesses to tolerate that, obviously, but everyone knows he is. And the thing is, she really just kind of danced around that issue. She definitely mentioned it, but there's so much there, and it's such a clear line of attack that was available to her with really no risk, and it just really went underexploited. So I think that you're absolutely right. Negative campaigning does work. You have to define the opponent, and you have to define why they're unacceptable, why their vision is unacceptable, why their approach is unacceptable, and why yours provides something better. And that, I think, was what she really struggled with, was um, one, defining what is Byron Brown's Buffalo. It's Byron Brown's Buffalo. What is it? How is it not meeting the needs of the community there? And what is India Walton's Buffalo? And that's the needle she just never really threaded well enough. I don't know if that would have been enough for her to win, but I have to believe that that would have at least made the final results much, much closer than they were.
And before we move on to the strikes, we should say, I mean, silver lining, I guess you could say, and I think you tweeted as much. Listen, this is a mayor that's been in there for 16 years, and she got 41%, with the media completely against her, with I mean, we shouldn't discount Republican money was flooding in to Mayor Brown. I mean, to me, essentially, from what I saw and heard, she was not given the deference as the Democratic nominee from the media. So, I mean, there's no moral victories, but it seems to me a building block for progressives that she did have a strong volunteer base. She did make strategic mistakes, which we've talked about. She had messaging mistakes and still got 41% of the vote. So, couple different decisions. Next time, maybe it's India Walton running again, maybe it's not. But that's better than getting 20% of the vote. Getting 41% among a entrenched incumbent Democrat, to me, is a good starting point.
Yeah, and I was talking to a couple of labor folks that are from Buffalo about the election, and I think that one of the things that we were really waiting to see, because we see a potential here, because this is something that could create an infrastructure and change the conversation in Buffalo in a way that would be seismic for the city. I mean, we're realistically talking about the potential for a viable left in Buffalo, which has not been the case probably since Vietnam. I mean, that was really the last kind of upsurge of local level activism, was during the Vietnam War. And we're kind of waiting to see, is this going to be built upon? Are people going to take seriously that we need to build some kind of infrastructure so the next race goes differently, whether it's running for common council or running for the county legislature? And I actually just saw, it was within the past couple of days, India Walton is actually bringing folks together from the campaign to do organizing training. And that is exactly what needs to happen. So I think that that's a really encouraging sign that, and she said as much when she won the primary, that the mission was not just to beat Byron Brown, it was to build an infrastructure that would allow competition, not just in the city of Buffalo, but throughout the county. And whether or not she won, she's still doing that. And I think that really is a silver lining that folks, it's not a moral victory, it's a base for building power. And you don't necessarily need to win every single election, provided that you have a clear understanding of what is it going to take to help you win the next one. The moral victory, that's kind of meaningless in the final equation, but you can build kind of the pathway to the next victory, even when you're losing, provided that you look at it as, okay, what went wrong, what went right, how do we actually change this next time? And I think the really encouraging thing is that Walton seems to be doing exactly that.